To the NFL season begins, and the Raiders, the first team to fully open camp today because they're in the Hall of Fame game a couple weeks from tomorrow against the Jaguars. Josh McDaniels taking over a team that weathered firestorms and tragedies off the field last season, and they made their second playoff appearance in 20 years. McDaniels returning to the head coaching ranks for the first time since 2010 after 2 seasons in Denver. So familiar with a division that is oh so tough this season. Since making the Super Bowl back in 2002, the Raiders have had 12 different head coaches. They've only made the playoffs twice. They don't have a single playoff win. And it's going to be difficult to get back there this season because of the competition in that division. All right. Raiders breakdown, here we go. Jonathan Jones and Rick Spielman with us on HQ. JJ, quiet start to the offseason for the Josh McDaniels era. I'm sure that's a welcome sign after all the issues this franchise had to endure last year.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I was actually just out in Vegas on a little vacation, took in some NBA Summer League. And actually, Chris, was my first time in Vegas. And one of my first reactions was, my goodness, the amount of resources this team must have to devote to keep these guys in line out here in Vegas, something that Rick could certainly shed some light on, being a general manager himself. But, you know, this is a team that, having talked with sources there this week, there's a Josh McDaniels who hopefully has grown from his time in Denver more than a decade ago, who understands that he's not going to be Bill Belichick, that he has to be the best Josh McDaniels, the best head coach that he can be. And I was talking with someone who said, listen, everybody here knows their roles. It's not do your job. We're quick to say that, but it is very much that scouts can scout, and the players know their roles and can go out there and play, and coaches know their roles. And that's something different, of course, from previous years where John Gruden was the head coach, and he was also able to overrule Mike Mayock there at general manager, certainly on some pretty notable failed draft picks. And so that is what Josh McDaniels has brought in, along with Dave Ziegler, who is the general manager. Those two have been joined at the hip for some time and have known each other for some time. So there is consistency there at the top ranks in an organization and a franchise that has had a lot of dysfunction, a lot of trouble, as you mentioned, both on and off the field.
Yeah, and what I would say, you know, there's a quick stat here on Josh McDaniels that I went and did some research on. The second time you get an opportunity to be a head coach, and if you had a losing record the first time you were a head coach, which was Josh's situation, you have about a 42% hit rate of being successful the next time. And I think Josh has learned a lot, I think, when he went back and worked in New England, but he's different than he was when he first got that job, a lot more mature, a lot better understanding of how the league works at the head coach. And I thought he put together a great staff in Mick Lombardi, who came as the offensive coordinator, although Josh will be running the offense, and to go out and get a Patrick Graham, who I thought was a big get for him as their defensive coordinator, who I think is going to be a future head coach.
So brand new coaching staff, but the big name that they brought into Vegas is a player. Davante Adams, could argue is the best wide receiver in football, but he's always had one of the top top quarterbacks in football in Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball. Very familiar, though, with Derek Carr, though it's been a while, the two teammates at Fresno State. What can those two do together, JJ?
Well, you mentioned they were teammates a little while ago. You know, I had friends in college that I'm not really friends with anymore. You grow up, you change, you evolve a little bit. And so are they going to just pick right up where they left off nearly a decade ago? Hard to imagine. Of course, they've worked together a little bit. And yes, Davante Adams, in my estimation, is the best wide receiver in football. Cooper Kupp obviously can argue his position there at the top of those rankings. But I like what Davante Adams brings this team. I think a lot of rational people, reasonable people can say, yeah, but he was also playing with a 4-time MVP and Aaron Rodgers, consecutive MVP at that, in Aaron Rodgers. But Derek Carr keeps that thing on him too now. This is a guy who last year had 6 game-winning drives for the Raiders, only one behind the league leader, who happened to actually be Ben Roethlisberger. That's some bar trivia for you. But I really love what Davante Adams brings to this team. I'm less concerned about that number 2 wide receiver role. That is maybe going to go, who knows, that's going to be a fantastic battle out there at Raiders camp. But they also have Hunter Renfrow, one of the best in the league in the slot. They also have Darren Waller, one of the best in the league at tight end, a guy that I believe is next up for a contract extension there in Vegas because, they've taken care of a lot of their own. They also, of course, took care of Derek Carr in a very team-friendly deal that is a bit of a prove-it year for Derek Carr. And it seems like we say that every year, right, Rick? That this is the year that Derek Carr doesn't have any excuses, that he has to prove it for himself. He just got that contract. Let's see if he can do it with his old buddy.
Yeah, no, and you look at this division and you look at and ask yourself, where does Derek Carr stack with all the quarterbacks in the division? Is he better than Mahomes? Is he better than Russell Wilson? Is he better than Justin Herbert? So he may be the fourth best quarterback just in this division, but he does have a lot of weapons like you've mentioned. You got Waller, you've got Renfro, who's an outstanding, maybe one of the best slots in the game right now, and now you bring in Devontae Adams. It will take some time for them to get adjusted and to get their timing down. But the other interesting battle, which you mentioned earlier, is it going to be Cole? Is it going to be Hollins? Is it going to be Richardson? Who's going to be starting opposite of Adams? And the other thing that I would look for is Adams was the guy and was the best receiver by far in the Green Bay Packers. Now that ball is going to get spread around a little bit. And does Devontae Adams get frustrated? I know they're going to get him the ball and get him his touches, but that ball is going to be spread around probably a little bit more than what he was used to in Green Bay.
The Raiders made the playoffs last season. The roster got even better, but they're in the most loaded division we've seen in a long time in the NFL. JJ, where do they stack up in this AFC West?
Gosh, I anticipated this question, Chris, and I wish I could tell you. I don't want to. It'd be a slap in the face to any of these teams to say, "Hey, I think that you're going to finish last." It really is. I think that you're going to finish like third best, right? I mean, it's really hard to say. And of course, you're always going to bet on Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy, whether they lost Tyreek Hill or not, just because of their body of work here in the past half decade when that triumvirate being together. You look at the Broncos and sure, on paper, they look fantastic. And are you going to have a Russell Wilson that looks more like the Russell Wilson of the previous 9.5 years or the Russell Wilson from the second half of last year where he battled that finger injury and obviously came back too early? I'm willing to bet that it's going to be the Russell Wilson of the better part of a decade. And then, of course, you have the Chargers. But listen, I believed in the Chargers last year. I still believe in the Chargers. But when it came down to it in the final game of the season, with an interim coach, with all of the issues that the Raiders had dealt with throughout the season, who won that game? It was the Raiders, and now the Raiders are better out there. So, Derek Carr said recently, we know that no one thinks anything about us. And listen, that may be fair just because of all the star power elsewhere in the AFC West, but I am so excited, Rick, to actually get out to training camps and see these teams in person.
I'll just tell you one thing real quickly. Their season will be determined on their first 5 games. At the LA Chargers, home against Arizona, at Tennessee, home against Denver, and then at Kansas City before the bye week. So you're going to have a pretty good idea what the Las Vegas Raiders season is going to be like and how they come out the gates in those first 5 games.
Yikes. Tough start and tough sledding all the way through for the Vegas Raiders, who right now are a distant fourth in the odds to win the division at 7-1. Got to try to keep things relative because you might have a really good team and you still might finish last in the division. JJ, Rick, thank you so much for the time here on HQ. Pick Six podcast right now. They're starting to ramp up for the season. 50 days away from the opener. It's your daily NFL fix with Will Brinson and others. Download and follow the pod.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.